Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a nice day. Before we begin the video, please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Jim Bob Duggar more excited for Jill's wedding than Derick? Was Jim Bob Duggar overly excited about his daughter Jill's wedding day? Fans are discussing how Jim Bob might have been looking forward to the special day even more than the couple themselves. Naturally, this is raising some questions. Keep reading to get all of the details. Now, Jill and Derick are happily married with 2 kids and 1 more on the way. They tied the knot on June 21, 2014. So, a lot has happened since then. Following Josh Duggar's arrest, trial, conviction, and sentencing, fans and critics have been digging up old clips of the family. They have rediscovered many interesting things about the Duggars and are now talking about them online. One of the fans' realizations is about Jim Bob Duggar on Jill and Derick's wedding day. After thinking about the special day once again, fans believe that Jim Bob's behavior is odd. Scroll down to find out why. Jim Bob Duggar overly excited for Jill and Derick Dillard's wedding? On Reddit, Duggar snarkers are discussing Jill Dillard's wedding day. The conversation began with a comment on how Jill and Derick used Michelle and Jim Bob Duggar's vows. However, fans and critics quickly noticed something else from the wedding. Someone recalls one of the worst things about Jill and Derick's wedding day. The fan says, the worst part was that it wasn't even the pastor who told them to kiss, but JB, who stood beside and leaned in and said it. Another chimes in, I think that was the moment for me when I realized they're not cute and harmless but actually a bit creepy and gross. Other fans and critics agree that Jim Bob Duggar seemed oddly excited about Jill and Derick's wedding day, their first kiss, and them beginning their lives as husband and wife. Someone else points out something disturbing they noticed in another Duggar wedding video. They write, and there's another wedding where he is very obviously craning his neck for a better view. Another snarker calls Jim Bob the grossest. So, do you agree that this makes it seem like Jim Bob Duggar might have been more excited than Jill and Derick Dillard were about their wedding day? Do you think that this is bizarre? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. And come back to TV shows Ace for more Duggar family news. You can watch Jill and Derick's wedding ceremony video below if you are interested. When Jill Duggar announced her engagement to Derick Dillard, fans of 19 kids and counting were thrilled, but no one seemed more enthusiastic than her father, Jim Bob Duggar. From the very beginning, Jim Bob was front and center in their courtship, almost acting more like the groom-to-be than the father of the bride. It raised eyebrows and sparked questions. Was Jim Bob more excited about Jill's wedding than Derick himself? It wouldn't be too surprising. Jim Bob has always taken a hands-on approach to his children's lives, especially when it comes to relationships. In fact, he famously handpicked Derick as a potential suitor for Jill while Derick was doing missionary work in Nepal. Their first interactions weren't even face-to-face, they were facilitated through Skype calls, with Jim Bob often listening in. While that might sound odd to outsiders, it was textbook Duggar. As the wedding planning ramped up, Jim Bob seemed to take the reins, from choosing venues to overseeing the infamous Duggar-approved guest list, no alcohol, modest attire, and absolutely no dancing. Derick, while sweet and supportive, sometimes looked more like a background character in his own love story. Meanwhile, Jim Bob gleamed with pride, almost as if he were preparing for his own vow renewal. Some fans joked that Jill's wedding was Jim Bob's second shot at the altar, a public reaffirmation of his family's strict values. For Jim Bob, the wedding wasn't just about Jill and Derick's love, it was about showcasing the Duggar brand. With the TLC cameras rolling, this was prime time for another Duggar PR moment. Jim Bob, the ever-smiling patriarch, stood tall as the architect of his daughter's purity and perfect courtship. He had followed his own rules, and now, the world would see the reward. Derick, on the other hand, seemed genuinely overwhelmed. While he was clearly in love with Jill, he didn't come from a massive, television-famous family. The spotlight was new to him. The expectations were sky-high. While Jill glowed with excitement, Derick sometimes appeared dazed, like a deer caught in the Duggar headlights. Critics argue that Jim Bob's excitement often overshadowed the couple's. He gave interviews, shared updates on social media, and seemed to dominate much of the planning. Even on the big day, he beamed at the cameras, proudly walking Jill down the aisle as if handing her off to a role he himself had cast. In the years since, Jill and Derick have opened up about tensions with Jim Bob, and fans now look back at the wedding with different eyes. Maybe Jim Bob wasn't just a proud dad. Maybe he was a man who couldn't separate his daughter's milestones from his own ambitions. So was Jim Bob Duggar more excited for Jill's wedding than Derick? Perhaps. Or perhaps he was just playing the part he had written for himself, one where the father knows best, and the story always ends in Duggar-approved bliss. Whether real or staged, the cameras certainly captured the moment, and Jim Bob made sure he was center stage.